A few familiar faces. Hello, Anna Garner. Yeah, I can see you. Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's Siobhan Harper. I'm chairing the first of these new team briefs that we're running now on a weekly basis across the patch. A lot of you will know me from City and Hackney. I've been around quite a long time, and I've just recently moved across to TNW to pick up the role as transition director. It was a similar role I was doing in City and Hackney, which is really trying to sort of support the team and support the CCG's work around transitioning to the new ICS, but as well as sort of doing the business as usual and keeping the show on the road whilst we go forward over the next 6 months. So I'm really pleased to be here today to say hello to everybody. I've got a little bit of an update, and then we've got a couple of speakers. We've got an interview with Rebecca Waters, who's our green team, very topical at the moment in terms of what's going on. So we will hear from Rebecca shortly, but I've just got a few things to update you on, and then we've also got the opportunity for questions today as well. So you can put your hand up like usual. Probably best to put your hand up if you can, because if the chat gets too out of control, we probably won't be able to get to all the questions today, but we will follow those up afterwards in writing. Someone will make sure that happens. Keep your camera on if you like, because it's good to see people's faces, but obviously please mute yourself if you're not speaking, because there's nearly 200 people on the call and it could become a bit of a nightmare. So we'll kick off. Just really, the first things I have already talked about this session. We would just want to say the conclusion of the Black History Month was with a session from Rashid Ogunlaru. I wasn't able to attend it, but I've heard really good feedback about it, and that it was a really greatly well-attended event, and it was really generated a really good discussion about inclusion and diversity, and was a really positive way to end Black History Month. So thanks very much for the people in the network who've took the lead on organising that. You can watch the session on YouTube. The link should be posted in the chat. And the other thing just to mention is a very happy Diwali to everyone who's celebrating tomorrow. So there'll be loads of fireworks going on across the patch. Flu jabs is the reminder as well. So if you're not eligible for a free one, you can claim back the costs through your expenses on Workforce. So if you want to have the flu jab, it's being advised, obviously. So go for it. When we can pick up those costs that you've had in terms of getting one done. And then just the other reminders are around desk bookings. I think the app is sort of got some issues, but those are all being looked at. And I think particularly if you're not going to use a desk, please cancel your booking. That's the most important thing, because I think people are booking desks, they're not turning up. Some of the data that we've seen shows that there's been a lot of swipe-ins and then desks not used. And so we just need to make sure that people are using the desk, because sometimes you can't book one and then people don't feel they can come in. And actually then the desk doesn't get used. That's particularly an issue for UNEX, I think. As I've said, remember, you're welcome to ask questions, put your hands up during the session. And this will be recorded and shown on YouTube as well. So you'll be able to catch up, and that will happen going forwards with the weekly sessions. Couple of reminders about the staff survey. You've got 4 weeks left to complete it. It's a good sort of tool for us to test how things are feeling. I know it's going to be a really kind of challenging few months for everybody, really, with winter, all the pressure of the work, and then the pressure of organisational change. So it's really important that we understand how people are feeling, and so that we can ensure that we've got the right structures and support mechanisms in place for people. And we have got this wellbeing, Keeping Well NEL hub, which can give you a safe space where you can talk to people individually as well as the work that we've done around the one-to-one appraisal and the people management cycle, which is on the workforce thing in terms of trying to make sure that we have structured approaches to keeping people feeling supported at work, and that is very important and something I certainly really do believe in. So we want to make sure that how we want to understand how that's gone down, but also where we might need to continue to improve. So the survey is quite easy. I've done mine. It is actually very straightforward. It doesn't take very long at all. So please make the effort for you and your teams to do that. So as I've said, we've got a couple of guests today. We've got Steve Collins, who's going to talk to us about fraud awareness, and Klaudia from the OD team is going to talk to us about skills, the skill up sessions. But first of all, we're going to hear from Rebecca Waters, who's going to talk to us about the Green Team and the COP26 activity that's going on at the moment, and what the NHS is doing and what we can all do to help to contribute to becoming net zero. I don't see any other questions at the moment, so we'll just kick off straight away. Rebecca, would you like to tell us who you are and a bit about COP26 and how it relates to health and care?
Morning everyone, I'm Rebecca Waters and I am the chair of the NEL CCG Green Team, but I'm also really lucky to be in a new role as a deputy programme manager, so I also get to look at the climate response for North East London as part of the programmes that I'm working on as my day job. Would you like me to go into the first question?
Yes, please. Yeah. So go ahead.
So just to outline what COP26 is, there is an article on the intranet as well if you want to read more, but it's an annual conference. It's actually the 200 countries come together, and the COP stands for Conference of Parties. So this year they will be looking at plans to cut emissions by 2030 in order to avoid the planetary temperature rise of 1.5 degrees. So as you'll see, they've started with grand events and bringing everyone together, but from today they'll be doing the hard negotiations where everyone's brought their own policies and plans, and they'll work out whether they're acceptable and whether they're realistic. So for example, today's theme is finance, and they're going to have different themes throughout the couple of weeks that they're meeting in Glasgow. As part of that, so whilst there's daily themes, health runs through it, and we'll put these links up, but you can look on the World Health Organization website for the calendar that shows you how health is inputting throughout, because the climate crisis is a health crisis. If the temperatures rise and if the air quality is poorer, that affects things like COPD and other respiratory health, as well as cardiac health and many other things, as well as putting services at risk. Whips Cross Hospital flooded in a flash flood that was not expected. And also in the same way that COVID is putting pressure on the system, if people are coming into the system for unavoidable health conditions, then let's work together to prevent those before they become a big issue for our service.
Thanks, Rebecca. I mean, you couldn't fail to have seen it. It's very high profile at the moment, so it's really good to think about the health connection to that too. So can you tell us anything about what we're doing in North East London around developing green plans? And do you have any examples of stuff that's going on at the moment that would be good for people to hear about?
Yeah, so the NHS declared a year ago that we should try to reduce our direct emissions by 80% with the target of 2040. So it's not for, it's only been a year since we've been working on this. And today's actually a really busy day for sustainability in NEL, because we've got a London roadshow just after this meeting. So that's a way of us all coming together as a region and sharing examples. And also we will have to work on a London Green Plan. We also have a NEL Green Plan to work together. So this afternoon we're meeting with all the Trust Senior Responsible Officers for Sustainability, because the trusts have a deadline of January to write their own green plan. Some of them already have one and they're refreshing it against new guidance, but others are starting from scratch, and some have only just got their head of sustainability in post, so they've got a lot of work to do in a few months. So as a NEL collective, we'll support them to meet that deadline. And then we'll take, although the work will start before that, we need to take the trust plans and work together as a system with primary care, the community, CCG teams like medicines optimisation in the States, and local authorities. And then we have to create a NEL ICS green plan by March. So we've already made some inroads in this. We have an anchor charter, which is bringing all the organisations together and committed to this. One of the themes is climate action. We also have some primary care projects going on with the estates team, where they've got 3 net zero health centres at Goodman's Fields, Wood Wharf and Aberfieldy Village. So they're Tower Hamlets based projects, but hopefully that learning can roll out across now. And then things that we're doing, as another example, as an ICS, we put in a bid for a Mayor of London fund, and that's a greener resilience fund. So I worked with the Homerton, Hackney Council, Elft, and some other community interest groups to put a joint bid in. We don't know if we've got it yet, but that would be to create a green corridor around Homerton Hospital and the other mental health services that are connected to that, as well as wellbeing spaces for the staff. So it meets climate change, but it also meets wellbeing and hopefully staff retention and our other wider aims. And then at the end of today, we've got a Green Team meeting, so I'll be updating them on the London regional meeting, which they're all welcome to come to and have the invite, and how the SRO's meeting's gone this afternoon.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's really that very interesting things, and it's a sort of the example of where it shows that you can have a lot more, maybe a bit more power if you're doing something across the whole of North East London. So thank you for that. And then just finally, is there something you can tell us about what we as staff individually can do to help reduce, well, for the NHS to reduce its emissions and, reduce its carbon footprint?
Yep, so keep an eye on the intranet and the staff newsletter, because the Green Team will be posting tips and stories throughout this theme, throughout the few weeks and ongoingly. But as administrative staff, we use a lot of energy intense resources. So we're using our laptops, we're all online right now, and staff travel as a CCG is one of our outputs. But a small change you can do, you know about reusable cups and masks and things like that. But if you go into your apps on your laptop or your mobile phone, you can actually look at setting a dark setting. So that reduces less energy from your device. As well as, of course, ideally, if all 600 of us switched to renewable energy at home, then while we're working from home, we'll also be having less emissions into the environment and causing less damage while working along for the NHS, because our main aim as the NHS is to do no harm. So if we could all look at how we do that during our working and personal lives, that would be really great. We're going to look at some carbon literacy courses and promote those. The Green Team are going to have a test of those first to see which ones to recommend. There's a national scheme called Greener NHS Communities. So even if you don't have time to get involved in the CCG Green Team, you can keep an eye on the national movement. It's for all NHS staff, and you can find it on the NHS Futures space, and you can see it on various social media and NHS websites as well. It's worth following Greener NHS on Twitter right now, because they're summarising a lot of the COP26 things for us.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's really, really helpful update. I don't see any direct questions for you at the moment, but hopefully there may be some things in the chat that you might want to respond to. Yeah, perfect. And we can come back to you with, I'm sure it'd be good to have future updates from you as well, because it's been really interesting hearing about things today.
Yeah, we'll keep it involved, keep it connected on the internet.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Thank you. So Klaudia, over to you to talk to us a little bit about Skills Up.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Klaudia Ostrouch, and I'm the Staff Engagement and Wellbeing Officer working within the Organisation Development team. And if you joined our all-staff briefing last week, then you would have heard Joe Lysenko talk about our new learning and development package called Skill Up. And our first series of Skill Up courses is based on the theme of respect and inclusion in the workplace. And as you know, one of our commitments as an organization is to create compassionate and respectful working environment. So this new L&D offer helps us to fulfill that commitment by equipping all of us to work together as colleagues by, for example, recognizing some of our behaviors that could make others feel excluded. And so far, we've released courses on topics such as cultural awareness in the workplace, menopause at work, maternity and paternity, impact of microbehaviors in the workplace, and there's a few more as well on workforce. So as today is Stress Awareness Day, last week we focused on courses for line managers on mental health overview and managing stress. And this week we are focusing on information on those topics for all staff. However, today I would like to show you an example of one of the first courses we released as part of the package, and that was inclusive language and communication. And I thought I could share a clip with you from this course so that you can kind of get a feel of what sort of things are covered within that course. And I'm hoping that the audio will work. We've tested it previously. So let's see. Let me just close the video and let me know if you can't hear this.
As well as the language we use, our tone of voice and our body language can often give away our thoughts and emotions and what we think about other people's suggestions, opinions and abilities.
We've got a load of difficult stuff to get through today. I haven't had time to do an agenda, so let's just go around the table. Marta, translations? You've got some figures?
I haven't got those yet. I'm really sorry. But I have got some very good news.
Actually, can we come back to that? Because Alex, I know you've got to be aware by 12:30, so could you do your techie update first, please?
Okay, sure.
Oh, hi, Keith. Hi, Brian. Thanks for giving up your time. We will make this as short as we can.
Yeah, I've got an important meeting in 15 minutes, so short's good.
The tiny micro.
I'm not
so
sure yet.
This is
the quality's a little bit, isn't it? The quality's not
yeah,
great. I think we get the gist.
Yes, I think the problem is when you have a lot of people in a meeting, it's not ideal. But this is, yeah, no problem. But for example, you can see over here, so they talk about the communication, the components of communication. Found it very interesting that 7% is words. So this is just an example of information that is included within those courses, and you can access all of the Skill Up courses for workforce, and each course is developed by leading experts, includes contemporary drama, lived experience, explanation. There's a short quiz at the end as well. If you prefer to read through the content, you can also access learner notes at the end of each course, but each video has subtitles and a transcript as well, so it's accessible. And I know that we've all been pressured for time, so the great thing about Skill Up is that all courses are bite-sized, and they typically take about 15 to 30 minutes to complete, with some of them taking 60 minutes. But we suggest everyone to block out time in your diaries to complete those courses, because they are very valuable and very interesting. And we have a page on the internet as well, which includes all the information. There's some information for line managers as well, which you can use if you would like to discuss any of the courses with your teams in team meetings. So please do take a look at Skill Up on the internet and on Workforce. And if you do have any questions, send us an email on nelondon.od@nhs.net. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaudia. That's brilliant. It looks like it's definitely generated a bit of interest because the clip in particular, I think, does resonate with people. So even though it was a bit shaky in terms of reception, I think those courses will be very valuable. So thanks very much for spending the time with us today, updating us on that. Okay, so now we're going to hand over to Steve Collins, who's going to give us a bit of an update on fraud awareness, I think, Steve, yeah?
Yes, thanks, Siobhan. And for those who I haven't had a chance to meet, my name's Steve Collins. I'm the Acting Chief Finance Officer and I've been given 2 minutes to make the topic of fraud awareness exciting and relevant for everybody this morning. I think the reason that it's relevant, though, is that I suspect we have all been victim, or at least have had fraud attacks on us. They might come through as a PayPal email, phishing email saying, please submit your details. They might be in a physical environment where someone is trying to do something that potentially leaves you out of pocket. And fraud is very real. And we know that through the pandemic, certain avenues for people trying to do things fraudulently have increased. The same, you'll have seen in the news this week, somebody actually had their house sold, even though they didn't own it, or they owned it, but they didn't sell it. Somebody sold it fraudulently on their behalf, and it was on the BBC News, I think, on Monday. So it's real, physical, virtual, digital, and it can hit everybody. And in the NHS, it's no different. We have challenges around areas like prescribing and medicines fraud. We have issues in the wider NHS world around staff fraud, where people might be calling in sick and then working a bank shift. And there will be areas where we've seen in the media where staff who have perpetrated fraud through other companies and through other organisations have actually gone to prison as part of the prosecution that can happen when fraud takes place. So it's really real. It costs the NHS millions, tens of millions of pounds every year, and you know, we have to do what we can collectively, firstly to spot it, and then where we need to take action to make sure that those that perpetrate it are brought to justice. So this week is November is Fraud Awareness Month, so we're in the first few days of that, and we wanted to help everybody just access both the training and the steps that they can take to be more fraud aware at the moment. And so there will be a series of virtual briefings and sessions running from late November through to January. Really encourage you to sign up, really encourage team leaders and managers to encourage their team members to sign up for that. And we also have the fraud awareness training on Workforce. So sessions will be running on Teams. You can book it through Workforce. You can log in and go through the learning catalogue and find the fraud awareness training. We work in partnership with RSM, our internal auditors and counter fraud specialists, and they will be helping to host some of those sessions as we move forward over the next couple of months. But really encourage you to do it. Really important that you are aware in work, but also that you share some of the learnings with friends and colleagues, because everybody is vulnerable. So I'd really encourage you to do that and be mindful of that as we go through November. So that's my 2-minute update, Siobhan.
That's great. Thanks very much, Steve. So we have a couple of questions that were from Slido that we were going to, and I hope maybe Rachel will respond to a couple of those. Is that okay, Rachel? Don't look too startled. Or maybe Don. I can see Don is there. I'm not sure if Marie Price is on the call today, but there was one in particular about local staff briefings. Whether we can keep them in place in some form. There's that question. And then there was a second question about plans for managing risk when we have staff, at-risk staff sharing office space with unvaccinated members of staff. And so they're sort of HRE type related questions. So if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
So just on the first one, which is so that again, the first one, my brain has gone.
It's about the local briefings, although I can see Marie is there, Marie Price. I don't know if she wants to answer that.
We've had a conversation a number of times over with our senior management team around the briefings, because we're conscious that as we brought the organisation together, we've got a number of arrangements around briefings, probably largely linked to the integrated care partnerships as they stand. And I think in terms of the conversations at an SMT level, there's an agreement that we try to move away from too many separate briefings, because I think there's a danger of our messages getting quite confused and possibly slightly diluted and nuanced. So there is an agreement, I think, in principle, to move away from too many and to start to establish one for NEL CCG, hence trialling this kind of approach with single NEL CCG weekly briefings. But I think recognising that there's still a need to try and make sure that there are mechanisms through which any very localised issues are still picked up, because obviously we don't want to lose that for people and feel that things that are specifically related to your own area or areas of work or your own boroughs or whatever are not lost. So I think we're just working through how we make sure that that is not lost by establishing a single set of briefings weekly on this kind of basis. But it is a bit of a work in progress. So I think we are certainly aiming to try and get people's ideas as to how we do that effectively. So that's that one. And then in terms of the second one, which is around safety, I suppose, and risk and management of that, particularly in relation to vaccinations. So as people will know, there is still no mandate for us to be able to insist people are vaccinated. And in that context, obviously, we'd want to try and keep encouraging people to take up their offer of vaccination and now booster vaccinations as they come through, and offer advice wherever people are keen to get that if they still haven't felt they've got the right kind of information to make an informed decision on in relation to their own personal circumstances. So on that basis, we are really encouraging staff to take that offer up, I think, and people will be aware, I'm sure, that there's been a consultation nationally out at the moment, and we haven't yet heard the outcome of that in terms of a potential for NHS staff to be mandated to be vaccinated, and that obviously may well change the position, but at the minute that's kind of where we are. If there are people who've got specific health issues or specific vulnerabilities that we need to be aware of, then I would remind people that a conversation with their manager about the risk assessment is probably the best way to start to really understand what sort of issues there are sort of personally for individuals, and clearly we want to try and accommodate and be aware of those on a sort of case-by-case basis. But that's kind of, I think, as far as we can go in the absence of any mandated vaccination position nationally.
Thanks, Rachel. That's very clear. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions unless anybody can point them out to me otherwise. But there is some chat and some comments in the chat. So there is one here actually about discussions on SMT level about celebrating the great work staff have done throughout the pandemic. Good question, Jabeda. We certainly were talking about that in City and Hackney before I moved on to the T&W role, but maybe that is something we could pick up at SMT our next meeting. I think that's a reasonable question.
Shall I?
Yeah, do you know? Go ahead, Rachel.
There are a couple of things. I think people might remember that we've been in quite a considered approach in terms of designing a staff thank you badge. I think that's about to be issued out anytime soon. So and thank you for those who've taken part in terms of designs and so on over the last few months. We've also been talking about how we might celebrate from a staff awards perspective. Again, I think there's been individual ICP arrangements around staff awards over the recent years. So I guess we're just thinking about how we do that on a single sort of CCG basis, again, giving kind of appropriate note to the individual ICP arrangements in the central teams. And I guess thinking about how we do that, particularly as we celebrate our short time as a single CCG moving into the integrated care body, so care board. So I guess just work in progress on that one, but very much want to make sure we do make some appropriate recognition of staff at different stages. And obviously there's many ways in which we can recognise our staff. So again, trying to work through our staff engagement groups to think of numerous ways to recognise you and the contributions you make.
Okay, brilliant. So perhaps we can bring an update or some of that to the next one of these or subsequent ones anyway. Okay, so we're literally 1 minute to 10. So I'm proposing then that we close that for today. And thank you all very much for joining, and we'll all see you again soon. Take care, everybody.